Hi, my name is Jason and I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I first got introduced to alcohol around the age of 8 when my parents thought it would be fun to give me little shots of Mickey's Big Mouth and watch me drunk and run around and bump into things. Around the age of 12, I became a ward of the court and started using drugs and drinking more alcohol. Through my teens, I've been through juvenile hall, lived in different places, kicked out of almost every school, and at one point had to have my family move out of the city of Irvine. All I was looking for was the need to fulfill my addiction and my alcoholism, and I was going to stop at nothing to do it. Around the age of 17, I started getting involved with gangs and just doing things that people around me were frightened of, even the gang associates I was hanging around with. I've been in my addiction for almost all of my life. I'm 46 years old. It's not just me that I have to live for, but I also have a 6-year-old son, and I've had sole custody of my son for the past 3 years. Even though I've had sole custody of my son, Jonathan, for the past 3 years, I still didn't let that stop my addiction or my alcoholism. It was the violence that I thrived on also, and the violence actually became more addicted to me than the drugs and the alcohol. Having custody of my son, I thought was a huge achievement, and that I was the only one in the world that had ever achieved something like that. Missy, Sean's playing with Jonathan, won't let me do this. Jonathan, you have to be quiet. So the violent behavior just streamlined got worse and worse and worse. I never once have I directed my violence towards my son, even in my addiction or my alcoholism, but I had no problem in placing it outwards towards everybody else, especially those whom I thought were going to hurt my son or hurt me. September 14th, 2015 is my clean date. What was it like being homeless? Well, for me, it was difficult because not only was it I that was homeless, but it was also my son that was homeless with me. We lived from motel to motel, even did some couch surfing from county to county for a while. And in all honesty, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it because I had fallen so deep into my addiction. About 6 years ago, I met a guy named Paul Stream. And I met him at a MAC meeting at a coffee shop. And there was about 6 of us that were at the coffee shop. And it was a time in my life when I was fighting for custody of my son. And I identified as an alcoholic and an addict. And I did a check-in at a 3 from a 1 to 10. And he looked at me and said, well, that's bullshit. Because if I was a 3, I would be on the edge, getting ready to jump off. So from that day forward, I took him on as a mentor, not as a friend or any kind of a sponsor in a program, but just somebody that, more like a father-like figure, which I never had in my life. I've been coming to his place for about 6 years, off and on, periodically, loaded and not loaded, but primarily I was just coming to show my face. This is going to be the first church I've come to where I've never brought a gun to because I haven't had to be in that fear. Let me see. On September 9th, I had a CPS come by my house and tell me that they were going to take my son away from me. And on the grounds of me being a drug addict. And when they left, I knew I got one over on them because they didn't drug test me or anything like that. So I took my son and I left for 3 days to clean up and shaved all the hair on my body. My parole officer called me probably on the 10th or the 11th and told me that he was going to come by and he was going to let me have the streets and the streets have me, and he was going to take custody of my son unless I did something drastic. So what I did was I got a hold of Vivian from His Place Church and told her that I needed to get a hold of Connie Hines in order to move into Gabe's homes. And so I got a hold of Connie Hines on September 13th. I came and met her at church, and the following Monday I moved into Gabe's homes. I signed over temporary guardianship of Jonathan to my friends, whom I knew would be able to raise him in the way that I wasn't able to do because I was in my sickness. I've been in Gabe's homes for 14 months, and on December 1st, my son and I will be moving out into our own apartment.